But neither should we panic or fall back on xenophobia. Labeling COVID-19 a foreign virus does not displace accountability.
The president referred to the coronavirus as a, quote, foreign virus. And I think it's going to it's going to come across to a lot of Americans as smacking of xenophobia.
The administration's labeling of this virus as foreign is undoubtedly playing into the rising xenophobia about it. Trump isn't cautioning us to check our racism, but is rather stoking xenophobic sentiment.
The president says it's a foreign virus as if this was launched on us like an attack. We know what that's about. That's about him playing xenophobia, works with his base.
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all, no, not at all. It comes from China.
He's also pushing U.S. intelligence to find evidence for this theory that the virus was accidentally released from a lab in Wuhan. That's his new angle to feed the wingnuts, to treat this virus like it was a conspiracy of some kind.
It should have never happened. This plague should never have happened. It could have been stopped. But people chose not to stop it.
What people? Tomorrow he'll blame the Spanish flu on Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. A 30-day deadline now for every single federal agency to scrub TikTok from government-issued phones. The Biden White House issuing new guidance Monday, directing agencies and contractors to delete the app from all devices. U.S. officials say ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, poses an intelligence risk to national security.
But one of the reasons that they have held back on the F-16s, and before that held back on the tanks, right, and before that, right, so this has been a step process, has been this fear of escalation into World War III. Right, you heard Prigozhin just refer to it. Putin has made plenty of threats about World War III if the West helps Ukraine attack inside Russia, which, of course, F-16s could possibly do, and certainly by his definition would do in Crimea. So what do you say to that? Do you buy into this World War III business, or is it just bluster?
Well, I don't think there's going to be World War III, but I am concerned about spillover. And President Biden and this administration have actually done a really great job of containing this conflict.
Seek to produce, you could have a future pandemic that actually threatens the entire species, which is why taking this possibility seriously is so important.
And just to be clear, you're saying this is the sort of thing they are working on right now in labs like this?
This is the sort of thing they're working on. And I think we can stipulate, as your question earlier suggested, that there have been good faith motivations for this kind of science. The concept in principle is create superviruses in labs so that you can then create vaccines and therapies to treat them if they were to emerge in nature. But the fact is, people have been warning that this kind of lab work can create superviruses that escape because lab leaks happen. They especially happen when you have substandard safety practices and when you have endemic secrecy, as we do in China's politics.
There's this lab, there's others there, right? They're studying coronaviruses, they're tweaking coronaviruses, they're doing all sorts of things, right? Possibly to come up with vaccines for them, but this is what's happening, and it is not transparent. And it raises the question, right? It's not just COVID-19 that could leak out of a lab. Something much worse could leak out of a lab, right?
That's right. If you combined, for example, the infectiousness of COVID with the deadliness of the SARS-1 virus that created a limited pandemic out of China 20 years ago, you would have not the COVID pandemic that we've just suffered through, which was catastrophic, but really only up to a point. You know, it hit vulnerable populations very badly, but it was not deadly to many other segments of the global population. If you combined the deadliness that we had 20 years ago with the infectiousness that we've had from COVID, which is the kind of combination that these laboratory experiments